Hello, hello. Good morning, Shoshanna Keats-Jaskoll. I am
Good
so
morning,
happy
sweetheart.
to have you here. I just want to do a quick, in case someone does not yet know you, and I don't know how that could be, but if they're on social media at all. If they don't, I just want to quickly tell you that Shoshanna is a powerhouse, a woman who uses all of her talents to make positive change. She is a co-founding member of Chachmat Nashim, and it fights against extremism and censorship of
Raises the
women.
voice of Jewish women. Yeah,
Yeah, censorship of women. And you work to make a healthier Judaism for everybody.
correct.
And very much needed, very much appreciated by all of us. So anyways, I thought that would be a perfect reason to have you here this week to talk about this week's Parsha, because in it we have the episode of Dinah. And unfortunately, I think that these issues that she dealt with that surrounded the whole episode, we still deal with today on a personal level and on the outer level. And I just think they need addressing. And I would like to open the discussion as how you see it, how I see it, what went down, what we can learn from it, how things can be different. And so I'm going to open up to you to hear your first thoughts, and then we'll discuss. So take it away, Shoshanna.
First of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Every year this Parsha comes around and it's funny. I have a friend who, for him, this is his favorite Parsha. And that's because he's, as a Kohen, he takes great pride in the fact that Shimon and Levi went in and decimated Shechem after Shechem raped their sister. And when Yaakov says, what did you do to me? I know I'm skipping till the end. I'll go back. But when Yaakov says, what did you do to me? They get the last word. They say, should he treat our sister like a harlot, a whore? And Yaakov doesn't say anything. So for him, it's like pride of taking care of, his sister and fighting and standing up for themselves. So obviously, as a woman, it's harder to say this is a favorite Parsha because of all the people in this story, we don't hear Dinah, right? She's acted upon, she's fought for, she's abducted and traded for, right? I'll go back and basically tell the story for anyone who doesn't know. It says that, I'll read the English just. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, who she had born to Yaakov, went out to look over the daughters of the land. And this is when Yaakov had camped right outside of Shechem. And Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the region, saw her, he took her, he lay with her, and he violated her. He became deeply attached to her. To Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, he loved her and appealed to her emotions. So Shechem said to Hamor, his father, get me this girl for a wife. Now Yaakov had heard what had happened, that Shechem had defiled his daughter, Dinah, while his sons were with his cattle in the field. So Yaakov kept silent until their arrival. I'm reading it on purpose because a lot of times we retell stories of the Chumash, and we use either our own interpretations or we forget specific words or we stick the midrash in there. How many times I've had to tell my children that actually isn't in the text, right? So that's why I'm reading it word for word, sorry. So Yaakov kept silent until their arrival. Hamor comes in. Hamor, Shem's father, went out to Yaakov to speak to him. The sons arrived from the field. The men were distressed, were very upset, fired with indignation, as it says here. For he had committed an outrage in Israel by lying with the daughter of Yaakov. Such a thing may not be done. And then they go on, and Hamor's like, my son, he wants your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife. Marry with us. Give us your daughters. You'll take our daughters. Notice who has zero voice here. Dinah has zero voice. Daughters have zero voice. The men are deciding what to be done with the girls. Okay, so this for me, obviously, and for I think a lot of people, is very apparent that this is very difficult. So as we know in the story, Yaakov's sons actually say, you know what, go get circumcised. And then, of course, everything will be great and we'll intermarry. And then they go and they attack Shechem and they kill all the males and they take their sister back. Again, she still says nothing. We don't know if Dinah wanted it. We don't know if Dinah, meaning to stay with Shechem afterwards. It's pretty clear from the text that Dinah went out, and Shechem saw her and abducted her. There's no question, she didn't run away with him in that sense. Whether she wanted to stay afterwards, we don't know. It does say he appealed to her emotions. It's heavy. And look, you asked my opinion, I'll give you my opinion, and then I'm happy to battle it out with you a little bit, although we'll see. It's painful to me that everyone's like, Bekitzo, well, she deserved it. Leah went out, she went out, Dinah went out, daughter of Leah went out, and she got raped. And so girls shouldn't go out, right? And women shouldn't leave. And therefore, obviously this is what we would call today victim blaming, right? Dinah did not go out and seek her own rape, nor does it mean if a girl goes out of the house that she, God forbid, is inviting rape. I think anyone who's listening here is going to be clear on that.
Right.
But at the same time, what's interesting in the same parsha, and this is what bothers me, and then I'm going to ask you what you think.
Yeah.
In the same parsha, a little bit later, it says, "Vayilech Reuven v'yishkav et Bilha pilegesh aviv v'yishma Yisrael," which means Reuven goes out and sleeps with Bilha, his father's concubine.
Right.
Okay. The first thing Rashi says is, no, we don't take that literally. He, of course, wouldn't do something like that. He just moved her bed. But what bothers me is why is Rashi saying things like, well, like mother, like daughter, Leah went out, Dinah went out, she got raped. But Reuven and everyone else gets mamash the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
So for me, it's almost like there's the story itself, which happened thousands of years ago, and there's the commentators' take on it, which was 1,000 years ago, give and take. And then it's how we, right, the Torah is forever. So how are we supposed to read, interpret, take, what is this for us? What does this mean for us? And I think, that's where it gets a little bit heavy for us.
Right. Is this my turn? I have so much to say.
Because I gave a speech and I said I wasn't going to do that?
No. Your speech wasn't long enough as far as I'm concerned. But I want to fill in some details. Okay. Now this Vayetze Dinah, when they say Dinah went out, and what you were saying was with the victim blaming, right? And Rashi says, Vayetze, Dinah's like her mother Leah, who went out. Because it says in the last Parsha, when she had traded the Dudaim for a night with Yaakov, it says Vayetze Leah, she went out to the field to go tell Yaakov that he was to spend the night with her. Now, I don't like particularly Rashi's explanation either. I do like what he did was connect Vayetze and Vayetze, but I said, you know what, that's not enough for me. I actually went back to look at all the Vayetzes up until this point to see what does Vayetze actually really mean. Not just that, Leah and Dinah both went out. What does it mean when they go out? Because I compared it, a lot of times people went out to do things, there are different words. There's vayalech, vayakam vayalech, there's vayavo, there's vayisa. When somebody would go, there's a lot of different choices of words. It's a specific reason when the text is using vayetze, and I'm saying, what does the text want to tell us with this word? So what I found is very fascinating, and I can give you a few examples because I looked at all of them and I was looking, it had to come up with a common denominator. It didn't fit with all.
How many pages do you have there?
I have so many pages. I looked at this. I have lots of pages. An hour hopefully will suffice. I mean, I don't know how much time you have, but so in the stories I found, and if anybody wants to know how, I can tell you, but to make it in short, that Vayetze is a going out, either there's an escaping from something, or a going to something that's a better future. So either way, it's a looking for a better future, either because you're escaping something or because you're looking to better it. It could be an extreme of you have to get out of here, because that's the case it was with Lot, and in the case of Noach, there was a Vayetze, but there was also a Vayetze with when Dinah wants to better her future. She's finally with the next kid. She had 4 kids. She wants 5, 6 because she thinks this is going to give her a better future with her husband. Or when Abraham goes out from he's headed out from Haran to Canaan to a better future, because God says lech lecha. So he's vayetze, he leaves there to go to a better future, something that's going to expand the horizons. And what I see when Leah was going out is she wanted a better future for her and for her children, and she went out to meet Yaakov. And this is a positive thing. This thing is actually, even by the men, it's extolled as a virtue. But when it comes to Dinah, because of what happens, unfortunately, people have taken it the wrong way. Now, what I see with Dinah, I'm very unfortunate what you said. I was also very disturbed by the fact that we don't hear anything from her. And I don't think it's a commentary on the times, because in the parak ahead, when Rivka was supposed to go, when Eliezer came and wanted to bring her back for Yitzchak, they said, let's ask the girl, let's ask her. And they asked Rivka what she wants. And even we learn in our tradition that you can't force a woman to marry. You have to ask her what she wants, and this comes from the story of Rivka. So it's not necessarily of the times. We see a lot of Rivka putting in her voice, Sarah putting in her voice. It's not that she couldn't have a voice because of the times. It's a product of a situation that she specifically, Dinah, was in, and wasn't meant for her. She had a personality. When it says that she went out l'rot bib benot haaretz, I think she wanted to see what the country girl will like, because she was treated, and you'll appreciate this, as as promulgated by people that we are diamonds in Sifrei Torah, us women. And she was put, when Yaakov was going to meet Esav, it says he brought his 11 children. And everyone said 11, okay, he didn't have Binyamin yet, but he still had Dinah. Why does it say 11? It should say 12 children. And then they say Dinah was in the box. Why isn't the Dinah in the box? Because he's protecting Dinah. He doesn't want Esav to take her as a wife. Again, she's protected, not out of any bad intentions. She's a diamond. She's a Sefer Torah. She goes in a precious box, right? She has to go in the box because we have to protect her, okay? And it's not as anything. It's because they valued her so much, and they had, it wasn't of any bad intention, but the point is that that's not meant for Dinah. Dinah she needed to be out there. She had a personality. She had to go out, and she wanted to see what girls who were able to be seen, girls of the land, what these girls were out and about and doing things, and she wanted to be out and about and doing things. She had a lot to give, and she wanted to go out and to see what it's like to be a normal person, not something that's in a box. She wanted to be out with the people. And the fact that she was hidden, that was what contributed to the problem. The fact that she's not counted and she has to be something different, even if it's special. People think, if you treat someone better, you're giving them better treatment. Not necessarily. I see in cases with families all the time that the one who might be think that they're getting the better treatment doesn't end up faring off better. They'll end up having major problems. And she had issues. She had issues, and it was very difficult for her. And the fact that you say we never hear her voice, even when you have to tell your Kohen friend this, even when Shimon and Levi went out, right? That this is a victorious moment. They're not going to stand for this. If you look at the narrative, it's disturbing to me. It's always their sister. It's all as in terms of, this doesn't happen to a daughter of Israel. This doesn't happen to our sister. This doesn't happen to the daughter of Yaakov. What do you mean? This should not happen to Dinah. This should not happen to the human being with the name Dinah, who has her own person, not as you see it because it's a knock on who you are, or it's a knock on the name of the family brand. It should be because of Dinah herself, and that's what's disturbing to me. I don't understand. That's the problem. And I think that we have to learn this in my estimation, and I know this is definitely the way you think also, is that if she's not able to give her own form of expression, her own face to be out there, her own voice, ask her what she wants, let her contribute to her future and to the future of the family, that's how come Shem was able to speak to her heart. It's very interesting. One more point I want to make before I let you answer is that when it says Vayetze Dinah, and it says he calls her the daughter of Leah, and they all say because she's like Leah, but when it says that Shem loved her, it says Shem loved the daughter of Yaakov, right? So why is here she talked about as the daughter of Dinah, and there the daughter of Yaakov. You know why he fell in love with the daughter of Yaakov? If you look at the different personalities, Shem was this entitled prince who got to dictate everything. He's like, I want her, he took her. He's like, Dad, you have to get this daughter for me, go to the family, and he dictated. And he says when he spoke to the people of the town to tell them all to be circumcised so that they can intermarry, they all listened to him. He got whatever he wanted. He spoke and he dictated too. But Dinah got dictated from. So Dinah was told, what to do from people, but not necessarily, again, because they weren't looking out for her best interest, but this was an unfortunate thing for her. And because she was the daughter of Yaakov, and this is the way she was treated from Yaakov, that she was dictated to, that's why they were able to make a connection. He liked the part of her that they worked together, because everyone always sees in someone else what they don't have in themselves. So the reason why it fit, the reason why he was able to speak to her heart, was because that lacking he could fill, and that lacking came from the fact that she was a Bat Yaakov. You see what I'm saying?
I think that I would even say that, again, this is all conjecture, right? But the minute that she's seen as herself and not as part of the family unit, I think that's how you speak to someone's heart, right? Like, Shem didn't take her because she was Yaakov's daughter. If that was the case, he would have spoken with Yaakov, right? For however you want to say, I'm not trying to romanticize abduction and rape,
right?
But he wanted her for herself. When was the last time that Dinah felt worthy and valued for herself? As you said, she wasn't counted. Right. She didn't count as because she wasn't a shevet, meaning she was not going to be fulfilling the prophecy of the 12 sons that we're always told about, which is not in the pshat. Just making sure we say that. But we, they say the imahot, they had nivuah, and they knew that they were going to be 12, which is why Dinah existed in the first place, don't you know?
Right.
Because her mother was pregnant, but Rachel only had one son, and had Leah had another seventh son, so then Rachel would have only had one boy. So Dinah was the sacrifice. Okay, she was what came because Leah wanted to give, very nicely, something to Rachel. So here's something like a totally different take on this. We see, not different take, but different aspect. We see all the time that the children of the imahot and the avot are often, they pay for the sins of their fathers, literally, right? Like Yaakov is really deceptive, right? Rivka deceives Yitzchak so that Yaakov can get the bracha. Yaakov leaves. Lavan switches the daughters with him so that in the end of the day, I don't want to call it rape, but at the end of the day, Yaakov had to sleep with someone he didn't want to be with. He had a wife that he didn't bargain for. So what's interesting to me is that Leah, who was part of the deception, she was the one who laid with Yaakov when Yaakov thought he was getting Rachel. And Yaakov, who then went on to deceive, he did deceive his brother Esav, and then he went on to deceive Lavan in other ways. At the end of the day, Dinah paid for this, because Dinah wound up being with someone that she didn't want to, also having no say in her future. We can't ignore this pattern that we see with the avot and imahot, and how tragic it often becomes, right? So maybe Leah was supposed to be with Esav. Not that I blame her. He was trying to kill Yaakov, and maybe Dinah was supposed to be with Esav. Who knows? Not that she was, she should be with someone, 60 years her senior, but that's the way it was back then. But all of this father-son, mother-daughter tragedy that we see playing out here can't also be removed from the story, right? When we're analyzing all of this, I think what's tragic to me isn't just what we see here, but what we are told later on. People who use this as an excuse for women not leaving the house. If you look at all the commentaries, I think it's just the Malbim, and I will give credit to Rachel Stomel, who pointed this out yesterday on Twitter. The Malbim says Dafka wasn't Dinah's fault. Okay, like everyone's going out, like Leah went out and Dinah went out, and mother, daughter, this and that, and it was the Malbim, I'm trying to pull it up, I believe, where he says, no, Dafka, it wasn't her fault. She just was, here, who was it? Some of them say here, she she went out of the norms and the guidelines of her family behavior. That's what it means, like vititse, like opposite of what you said, which is where it's like to a positive thing. They're saying it's a negative thing, like Leah went out and this and that. And the Malbim actually says, no, it wasn't her fault. So like, yay for the Malbim in that case. But for us, you know, these lessons from thousands of years ago are still being taught to our daughters, right? Like they say, Hine Sarah Ba'ohel. So stay in your tent, women, and also go earn money and also raise the children and also do everything else, but do it from the tent. Okay, fine. I think it's important that we, you know, I have daughters, you have daughters. What do we want to make sure that that our daughters don't take from this parsha, and that they can learn from this parsha in positive ways? I mean, obviously, we all believe in the midah of tzniut. At the same time, I don't believe you can learn tzniut from this.
Right.
I think anyone who tries to bring tzniut into this is seriously mistaken. You can learn responsibility. You can learn familial need, taking care of your children, hearing each individual child, being able to see what their needs are, being able to see how they want to express themselves. You know, as a parent, we can learn a lot. But I remember growing up in America, and I don't remember, I think it was maybe Channel 5 where I was in Jersey. It used to say, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Kind of like, where are you in relation to your children? And obviously as a mom, this is something we want to make sure that our children always feel loved and heard and respected as individuals, as you said, which clearly was lacking here.
Right. I wanted to, I really like the fact that you brought up not to learn tzniut from here. And I think that the point being, if you think about tzniut is if you have something and being modest about what you have, as opposed to she was going out because I think this is the problem. If you don't have a healthy self-esteem or a healthy upbringing, and you don't know who you are inside, you have to go out to look for it. You know, you're going to external places to look for things that should be inside. And I think that causes problems for anybody in any way, man, woman, whoever you are, is that, and you'll never find what you're looking for outside. You need to do the internal work, but you need to do it properly. And I also don't think that this is about tzniut at all, because it's about, if anything, a search for something that was trying to be, that she had, that was trying to be hampered. There's a difference between covering up and a hampering, you know, and I think that there's a fine line between that being distinguished, and that people get tripped up on that. When some people say, you know, you're just trying to be modest, you can be modest about something, you can be modest about something you have. But if you don't have something, you don't let somebody be something, and you're covering up confusion, you're hampering and you're causing something lethal. You're causing something that's going to explode, because it's something that's searching and it ends up going out and there ends up being an explosion. I think that's very problematic. So I don't see this either at all as tzniut, because I don't see it could be a tzniut if she's in a search. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think the concept of tzniut, we just had a panel on this earlier this week. What is tzniut? What does it mean? Right? Like, everyone uses it the way they want to use it,
right.
But what does it really, really mean? There's actually no mitzvah of tzniut, right? There's no commandment to be tznius, right? You have a commandment to be holy, like Hashem. Well, what does that mean? So what does it mean to be holy? Well, what does it mean in what context? And what are we talking about? Are we talking about inches? Are we really talking about inches? Are we talking about behavior? Are we talking about, you know, our lifestyle? It's tragic to me that a woman's Judaism is so often utterly reduced to what she wears or doesn't wear. And so many women have said to me, you know, the minute they changed the way that they were dressing or covering their hair for themselves and their own relationship to Hashem, people saw them differently, treated them differently, acted towards them differently. And I feel like it's so wrong. It's so wrong to judge women this way on what they're wearing or not wearing, or to say that a woman going, you know, look, even when women go to learn Torah, Aliza, right? Like, Women are learning Torah. Women are learning Daf Yomi. They want to be communal leaders to give back to the community. Why are women's motivations constantly questioned? Have you ever heard a man ask, well, why do you want to be a rabbi?
Right.
Are you sure? Like, is there like are you sure it's not like gaiva? Are you sure there's something? Who says something like that? But it's such a natural thing to ask women. Why do you want to learn? Why do you want to be a leader? Why do you want your face on a publication? That's not so tznius. Have you ever seen anyone say to a man, are you sure you want to be in a picture? It's really not sanua. But we are constantly reduced to our physical appearance in our observance, in our motivations. And it's really, to me, something that, as you can see, started a very long time ago when, back in the day. But here, I'm reading and rereading this parsha. She's mamash not. She doesn't say a word. She's not asked anything.
Right.
Shechem is, I love her. I want her. Give her to me. I've fallen in love with her. I'll do anything you want. Please, 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 please. They're like, sure. Go have a bris. And then they kill him. Imagine, they probably came into the palace, slaughtered all of them. Dinah's like, grab her, take her away. She had nothing to say from beginning to end of this whole thing, and we have no idea what happens to her, other than, the whole midrash about her getting pregnant, having Asnat, who marries Yosef, which is, again, midrash, which is fine, whatever, pretty accepted midrash, but literally nothing from her whatsoever.
Right.
And we have to just fill in what we, in our 2020 minds, 5781 mind, can try to extrapolate. And I think, unfortunately, for a long time, we've done a very poor job of it.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I don't even see an indication for anything. And I don't see why all of a sudden they would take something. It's not even the way to take something and to twist it the way it hasn't been understood in other ways. So to put the blame on Dinah is beyond my comprehension. I don't understand where that's coming from, to tell you the truth. I don't know. I guess if you have to choose to put the blame on Dinah or to put the blame on the men, where's the blame going to go, right? I don't know.
Well, what's interesting to me is that I'm just looking for a second to see right. So Vayikachota is what it says first. Shchem Vayikachota Vishkavota V'yaneh, right? And what does it say at the end when the boys, they were boys, they were young men that came in, and they said, Vayikchu et Dinah mi beit Shchem. They both took her. The brothers did the same thing in terms of taking her and not speaking to her. How much would have changed if words had been used? Think about it. If she had been treated as a human being, a person, and I've said this, you started off by saying Torahs and diamonds, and women are Torahs and diamonds, and I cannot object strenuously enough to the objectification of women. We are not diamonds. We are not Torahs. We are not flowers or lettuce or anything else that we have been replaced with. We are human beings. I can show you all the pictures.
Lettuce?
And so imagine if Shechem had said to Dinah, hey, I'm Shechem. You look like someone I'd like to get to know. Can we, blah, 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 however you did it back then. It was probably most likely it wasn't Shechem himself who took them, but it was probably the soldiers who went and grabbed her, but whatever, that's also speculation. But at the end of the day, imagine how it would have happened if the brothers had said, we want to speak with our sister before we'll talk to you. Bring our sister to us, or bring us to our sister. Let's see how she's doing. Did they even know?
Right.
Nothing.
But the conversation had to start way before that point. The reason why she's already in that predicament was because there were no conversations prior. And the reason why I think she's nothing happens in a bubble. So if there was conversation way before this and she didn't feel the need to go out to see something, to be something, to be able to be herself, because she wanted to be out and about, then it wouldn't have been the case. I feel that the fact that she's stifled and not able to speak beforehand. So if beforehand she was one of the 12 children that Yaakov took across the river, whatever. I think once you get to that point, there is no conversation. They're already, Shimon and Levi, very passionate people. They're irate, and the flames already out of control at that point. They had the plan. They made a plan. They were going in for the slaughter. That was the whole reason for it. And
not only that, Lisa, but if you see, they took all the wives of this town of Shechem captive. They did the same thing.
Right.
I mean, they took the wealth, the kids, the women that were in the city, and they brought it home.
Right.
They kidnapped them.
Right.
Excuse me. How are we justifying this?
Right.
Like, people don't like to continue reading, but that's what they did.
Right.
They slaughtered the city, all the men, and took everyone else with them. So explain to me how this is moral, how they're really indignant for her.
Right. So the thing is this. I don't like to make the distinction because I'm not saying that this is something that's necessarily okay. What I'm saying is if you look at also the narrative, they say this is not done, that he should sleep with her like she's a harlot. This is not done. It's not something that's acceptable. What is acceptable is once you go to war and you kill everybody, yeah, you take the women. Everybody does that. You take the women and the children captive. That's common practice. That's accepted. It's all, again, what bothers me about this is what's convention and what's accepted without looking into it specifically. You understand? So the fact that it's convention, that it's
right. I hear what you're saying, and you have a good point, right? Like, okay, everybody did that. Okay, but maybe in Shechem, it was also okay to abduct a woman, rape her, and ask for her hand. Look, in the Torah, we read later on that if a man rapes a woman, he's obligated to marry her. That's Torah law. Okay, she's not obligated to marry him. She can say no. But if a man goes into and rapes a Jewish woman, if a Jewish man rapes a Jewish woman, he is obligated to marry her. He can't toss her away. So Shechem wasn't Jewish. They weren't Jewish at the time either. Let's just be clear. Right. There was no Torah, right? But this is what happened, right? He rapes her, and he's trying or attempts to do right by her in the law of the land back then, and they're like, nope. And then they go and take them. So are there two sets of laws? Is there one set of laws? Are we, like, I hear you, and at the same time, I feel like I would not have wanted to be a woman at this time in history. I think that's my conclusion.
Right, no, me neither. Me neither. But right. I personally am in the camp that, of course, there's an argument back and forth. Did they do the right thing? Did they not do the right thing? And I really don't think that the way it went about, Yaakov seems to reprimand them. He wasn't happy with it. I'm not so comfortable with just lying on the fact of saying, okay, Yaakov reprimanded them is wrong, because Yaakov said more like, you made us conspicuous, we're few in number. He was more about saying that this is jeopardizing our position than saying that this is not the way it should be done, which are two separate things. But I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to know how you deal with that, because who knows? Again, I don't know how the times worked. And I really believe that Dinah was at that point. You see that when someone's made a victim and then they start to, unfortunately, with sexual abuse, and then people start to protect their abusers. It sounds to me like he was able to speak to her and make it in a way where she was tied to him also, and she was tied to, when it says Vaya Aneha, and I think she was torn in her soul because I'm sure originally this was something that was very traumatic and very horrible for her, but he spoke to her heart. So he was able to do something. He was able to manipulate her in a way that she felt attached with her abuser. And that was a very, very difficult situation. And the fact that he had that they were on strange territory and that they had all of Shechem's, the whole town behind them. I don't know, did they have a better way to go about it? I don't really think that Shimon Levi could have gone in there and spoke to anybody. I don't think that they were in that position of power to do that.
Shem and Hamor were at Yaakov's tent begging,
right?
Said, I'll give you whatever you want. Increase the dowry up until whatever you want. I'll give you anything you want. They were for sure in a position to say, we want to see if our daughter's okay. Of course they were.
Well, they could say, we want to. Oh, so you're saying they should say, we want to see if we want to just talk to Dinah, and then, right? Okay.
I mean, look, as you said, the parsha before, Rivka was asked, "Is this what you want?"
Right.
They didn't ask Dinah. Sorry, they didn't ask Dinah, "Is this what you want?" Or a few parshas before.
But I don't know how it would have worked because let's say she's already in a position of protecting her abuser, and maybe I don't know if it would have necessarily, in hindsight, they say, okay, we want to speak to our sister. They go in. What if she says, no, I want to stay with Shechem? Then what? It doesn't matter. They said increase the dowry 1,000-fold. We'll give you whatever you want. They didn't want it. Shimon Levi didn't want anything. They wanted revenge. That's the only thing they wanted. They were livid.
Okay. But that's the point. They wanted.
Right. They wanted. Right. That is the point.
We don't know what Dinah wanted. Nobody asked Dinah.
Right.
You're already jumping into the psychology of a victim, which is not where they were.
Right.
They were not there.
Right.
They were not, well, he may have spoken, like mamash not happening. They were angry. Listen, I do believe they cared about their sister. I'm certainly not going to take that away from them.
Right.
They cared about their sister. They were angry for her. They were furious that she was abducted and raped. I have no doubt about that. And being a bat Kohen myself, I can tell you that it does actually run in the family, this absolute rage and anger of like, I'm going to kill someone.
Right.
There.
Right.
At the same time, you can't do that. And I think that's what Yaakov was saying. You can't act on your rage. Right. Now, maybe that's something else we need to start talking about. What do we learn from them? You can't act on your rage, even if it's righteous anger. Now, it's interesting because Pinchas is praised for what he does, right? And then, of course, they say, well, Pinchas, killed Cosby and Zimri for basically having sex in front of Moshe's tent. But that was at the moment he knew this was Kiddush Hashem, such and such. But these guys had plenty of time to calm down because they were saying, go have a brit milah. And they came on the third day and they attacked weak and helpless people and took listen, what they did was taught them a lesson. They taught Shechem a lesson. They taught everyone around Shechem a lesson. You don't mess with Bnei Israel. That was what they were doing. Dinah was unfortunately the victim in this. And I do believe that they cared for her, as I said. And I do believe that you get points for familial, whatever it is. Now, listen, contrast the way they fought for Dinah versus the way they were very happy to kill Yosef. Right? Like, Yosef really made them mad with his dreams. I mean, this is, next time. But he really angered them. And you had, who was it? Yehuda, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was like, toss that kid in the pit. Like, get rid of him.
Reuven said that to toss him in the pit. Reuven.
Oh, Yehuda wanted to kill him and Reuven saved him, right? So here again, like you have Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. And I forgot the others. Who else are Dinah's kids? But Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda.
Yisachar, Zevulun.
Those are Leah's? Okay. I trailed off at that point. So these were all actual siblings, right? Shimon and Levi were full siblings of Dinah. Also, Yehuda was, and Reuven. They were actually the eldest, and they shared both parents, right? So they were the closest. Yosef was obviously Rachel's son, and he was making a pain in the tuchus of himself when it came to his other siblings. At the same, on the one hand, Dinah didn't do anything wrong, because if they felt Dinah did something wrong, I don't know if they would have been so ready to rescue her. Look how they were ready to toss away Yosef. So I don't know. Obviously, we're getting into.
No, yeah, because Dinah was one of them. Like there was this, Rachel's kid versus Leah's kid, and they saw Dinah as our sister. Again, it's our sister, our sister, our sister. So she was their sister. And it doesn't appear to me, obviously, they didn't think she had culpability in any of this, and
well, look what Reuven does in the same parsha, same set of siblings. Reuven is pissed that his father goes to Bilhah's tent instead of Leah's tent, and according to the text, he sleeps with Bilhah. According to Rashi, he only moved her bed. Okay, but they had a tremendous loyalty to their mom and to each other, at least from what we can tell. Shimon and Levi were like two peas in a pod, working together, same mind, saving Dinah, helping their mom, Reuven helping the mom with whatever. But it's hard for me, again, it just goes back to the difference between the boys and the girls, the men and the women, how they were treated, how they were forgiven for, like Reuven was forgiven. True, he lost the bechorot, like they say, because of this, but he was forgiven. He wasn't taken out of the, do we hear about a bracha for Dinah? Do we hear about her descendants counted? Like, unless we just add asnat to this, no, nothing. I can't believe that it had nothing to do, that the way they treated Dinah had nothing to do with what happened to Dinah. Like you said in the beginning.
Yeah. I definitely think so. And when you're talking about the bracha, you make me think, because even Lavan, still the non-Jewish, again, Jewish, not Jewish, we'll just use that word, non-descendants of Abraham, Rivka got this beautiful blessing that we use when she left, about, she should multiply and all this. And she got a blessing. So it's not that women of the time couldn't get a blessing. I'm wondering, is there something about her, in the olden days when someone was raped, there was a disgrace. It was a disgrace on the person. Now we're more sensitive, and we understand it has nothing to do with the person, and you don't disgrace the person for something that's done to her. And we don't, thank God we've moved past that. But in those times, maybe it was the fact that we don't hear anything is maybe because, I'm a little bit saddened to think that maybe this situation made it even worse. She was put in the box then, and then after this happened, how much more so she might have been sheltered. I don't know what happened after. We're not given that information, what happened to Dinah afterwards. Right. But I'm thinking there's no, again, I think if there's no more story, there's no more progression, there's no more growth, there's no more things to learn from it.
Right. So what's interesting is that you just said about women getting brachot. So Lavan is actually really upset with Yaakov for ditching in the middle of the night, right? And we all know Lavan was not a good guy. But what was interesting to me was I did feel when I read the Parsha that Lavan chases after Yaakov. He is like, what is happening here? Where did this man go? And he takes him to task for stealing his children and grandchildren, his daughters and grandchildren, and not allowing him to kiss my sons and daughters. You didn't even let me say goodbye. He could have just stuck with the fact that he felt he stole from him. He could have just said, you were deceitful, but you led my daughters away like captives of the sword. It's so interesting to me how he accuses Yaakov of doing the same thing that exactly happens to Dinah. And this is where we're talking about like how things that the parents do affect the children. And sometimes it's like eerie and super weird. Right. But like, that's exactly what he says to him. What Lavan says to him, I'm trying to find the Hebrew as I'm looking at it. V'tignovet levavi, v'tinaheg et benotai k'shvuyot cherev. captives of the sword. It's crazy how literally this happened in, by the way, you know the name of the parsha. Vayetze,
Right.
okay? Happens
Right.
in Vayetze that he says, you took my daughters away by captive of the swords, and then the next parsha, Dinah is taken away, abducted, and kept literally as a captive. And it's to me, it's almost a little too much. Like if this was a book that someone was writing that I was editing, I'd be like, this is too, I forgot the word, poetic justice. It's just too much. But here we are looking at the parsha. And I wonder if Hashem's saying to us, be careful what you do.
Yes.
Be
Yes.
careful what you do, because it can come back to you. And all the things that Yaakov unwittingly caused someone pain, maybe, I believe he did actually cause Lavan a little bit of pain. I do believe for all of Lavan's faults, he did care about his kids. Look he didn't have to marry Leah to Yaakov. He could have left her a spinster. Machpatlo. What does he care?
I'll tell you.
No, I'm sorry. I stick up for him.
Wait, no, I'll tell you why. First of all, Love on his history is really milking it, whatever he can get. You can see that all from the beginning to the end with all the story. And I feel like if he can get 7 more working years out of Yaakov, he's getting 7 more working years out of Yaakov. But I do want to say I don't like the extreme villainization and,
Yes.
and I do see something good in Lavan that I think was maybe missing in Dinah's life, and why, Lavan gave the blessing to Rivka, and he says, you didn't let me hug and kiss my children, showing this importance, this importance about that, the physical attention to give to your sons and your daughters that build. Why was Rivka so healthy? Why was she able to do things and affect positive change and be she was the equivalent of Avram Avinu. She got that in her youth. You see that from Laban, hugging, kissing, loving, asking what she wants. All of that went into building the character of Rivka that was able to do everything she managed to do. Unfortunately, that's what apparently Dinah was missing, and that's why Shechem was able to inoyota and be able to, speak to her heart and do all those things and fill in that missing gap. I think that's a vital lesson that we have to get from.
It's an excellent point. It's an excellent point, because now I'm thinking back to when even Eliezer went, right? When Eliezer went to get Rivka, and as you said, hugged and kissed and this and that, and then Yaakov kisses Rachel when he meets her. But that's the last thing we hear about kisses.
Right.
And of course, Rashi tells us it wasn't really a kiss, blah, blah, blah. But it's the last thing that we hear about physical affection, until Lavan says, like you said, you didn't allow me to kiss and hug my sons and daughters. Mm-hmm. And it's so apparently missing from these relationships, even when Yaakov and his sons, when we hear about the sons and about the favoritism of Yosef over the other children, there was clear issues happening. Now, some of it may have been very, very simply because he had 4 wives. He didn't marry the woman that he wanted originally, and it completely shifted his capability of, maybe he was looking for romance and love and affection, and then he had to completely shift to destiny and seeing his children as part of this destiny as opposed to human beings, as we've been saying before, right? And I think, by the way, that carries through in their ability to say, well, Yosef is obviously a threat to this destiny, because he's separating himself from us. And therefore, that allowed the children even to disassociate themselves. And when do you next hear about kisses and hugs? When Yosef is in Egypt, and they come down, and he reveals himself. All of a sudden, all those emotions that have been kept inside, that have not been displayed, that have not been expressed, come out, and he cries. He cries. Yosef is crying. He's hugging and kissing his brothers. When was the last time? It's such an important point that you've brought up that is mamish lacking in this family. And I think if there's one thing that I already hug and kiss my kids a lot, but now I have more of an excuse to go and hug my kids and kiss my kids now.
Yeah, I've had to learn, and unfortunately way too late in my life, because I wasn't brought up in an overly affectionate family, and it's really something that I feel like I learned way too late, and the value and the importance that can't be stressed. If I can go back, if anyone young is listening in their life, I mean, it's never too late, obviously, but the most important thing, even if you weren't brought up that way, once you start doing it, it becomes your nature to give the hugs. I'm a big believer in the 20-second hug that can just relieve the stress and just bring you into your
20 seconds. I thought you meant 22nd, like after the 21st. I'm like, what?
No, 20 seconds, and it should last. It shouldn't just be, like a real
Got it.
hug where you're exchanging. There's a reason why there's a Daled Amos. When you get into that 20-second hug, you're really sharing. You're really sharing and giving each other. And so I think that's very important. And this is why I actually like the Midrash when you're bringing in all the Yosef. This is why I really like the Midrash with Asnat being the daughter of Dinah. I like the fact that they both had a suffering of a lack of affection and end up coming together, filling that need, filling that void, doing the,
and who are their children,
and that's why their children, we bless them to be like Ephraim and Manasseh. Why? Because once that love came together, that expression of love that they both were able to fill in the gap for each other, give each other, bring back the warmth, and teach it to their children. That's why Ephraim and Manasseh had a healthy relationship. And I think that shows all that. And it had to come through. It had to eventually come through. And when it doesn't happen, like you say, unfortunately, the sins of the parents fall on the children until when? Until they fix it. And that's why Asnat and Yosef came together. And that's why when they finally came to Ephraim and Manasseh, it was such a beautiful expression. And it was a tikkun and a coming together. I mean, unfortunately, it didn't last. And we're still we're still divided and we still have problems. But I think that's what we need to get back to. And every big problem starts from these little problems. And every big problem stems like what we're talking about. The sneut is not a sneut. If you have a self-esteem and you find out who you are inside, right? I mean, because to me, that's really the measure of being who you are, knowing who you are. Then you don't have to flaunt things. Flaunting things is the anti-sneer, whatever that means. I don't believe at all it means sleeve length or skirt length. And to me, that's all shtuyo. I mean, you have to be covered up modestly from where you are, whatever. A different story. That's a different story altogether. To me, that's not sneut. Sneut is knowing who you are, having the confidence in yourself to do what is right, and not to feel like you have to go out there and prove yourself to be something that you think other people want you to be. That to me is sneut, And I think that all that comes to this parsha of learning how to just find that person. And that comes, again, from that encouragement and love and acceptance, a physical love, even because, you know what, as parents, I don't think we always got it together. We're all going to make mistakes. We all make many mistakes that contribute to us, to everybody having to sit on a couch sooner or later. But what I'm saying is that if you have the love given and you see, if a child sees that, yes, my parents, when they learn that parents do things wrong, that yes, my parents might have done X, Y, and Z wrong, but they love me so much. And I know that they love me. And I know they were only trying to do what's best for me. It will lead to a healthy future. I think that's the key element, because things are going to go wrong, but the love and affection and the show that you are important. You, Dinah, are important. And I love you, Dinah, for who you are. Not because you're not a boy, not because you're the daughter of, not because you're Dinah. And Dinah's, look, I think Dinah's story was unfortunate because also, aside from the fact that she's not a Shevet, she's number 7. Where is she in the long line of not the choice? 7. Not the choice wife. And after a whole slew of kids, and we know Yaakov's out in the field today, even best of intentions, he's not around. He's just not around. And Leah's got all this. She's worried about her relationship. She's always worried about the kids. There's so much going on, too, that's just a part and parcel of, not necessarily anything that's 100%. You can't put all the blame on Leah either. It's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but she didn't get it. She didn't get all of that, that goes into making the child a healthy child. And I think that's the key element. And if you have that baseline, solves so many other problems and issues, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I think, as I've told people, ask me, like, po v'sham, parenting, this and that. I said the number one rule of parenting of any relationship is unconditional love. Everything else is commentary. It's like exactly what you said.
I agree with you. And I think that why people get
And showing that love.
Showing that love. And what people have to understand is unconditional love does not mean unconditional accepting of everything that person does. You can love a person unconditionally, say, I love you no matter what you do, okay? I understand you are you, you make your decisions, whether they're right or wrong. I love you no matter what. But that doesn't mean I agree with everything you do. People make that, they conflate the issues. They think unconditional love means you accept and you condone everything the other person does. No. You'll never have two people that agree 100% on anything. That's not going to happen. But you can love them no matter what. You can love them knowing that they're a person with their own autonomy to make their own decisions. And they're the ones who have to suffer those consequences. And you love them, you'll be there for them, whether they do the right thing or whether they fall and they need to be uplifted. You're there, you love them, you're not ditching them no matter what. And that's, I think it's important distinction to make, because I think people confuse the two,
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I have nothing to add. You had it on the head.
Anyways, I want to give you you get the ending words as the guest, the parting.
Parting guest.
Yeah.
Gosh, I used so many of them already. I guess I would just say that if anyone is, reading this parsha, talking about this parsha, I'm sure you'll have the opportunity at a Shabbos table, or God willing, after Corona, you'll have the opportunity at a Shabbos table with guests to ask people to think about it a little bit differently, to consider the interpersonal relationships, to question why Dinah is Ashema, guilty, but Reuven is automatically thought of as not guilty by the Meforshim. It's important to understand and to question people's reactions and to give an alternate, opinion, because we all consistently and constantly learn from Torah, and we should integrate it into our lives, not just be angry at the way things happened then, but to integrate it into our lives, into how we treat people, into how we see rights, wrongs, hearing what people have to say, asking how they feel about things. It's important. And so I just bless everyone with a wonderful Shabbat, and that we should take the lessons that we need as individuals and as a community.
Amen. Thank you so much, Shoshanna Keats-Jaskoll.
My pleasure.
And I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.